I am an animal communicator. And I would like to talk to you about animal communication. But first, I would like to ask you a question. Who here has a mobile phone? Okay, as I suspected, nearly everyone. It's a pretty cool form of communication, right? But what if there was another form of communication that didn't need you to charge the batteries, wouldn't cost anything, and crosses the species barrier? Wouldn't that be way cooler? You already have this form of communication. Everyone here can talk to animals. Okay, that might seem obvious, but what might surprise you is that they can reply to us, and we can have a conversation with them. I'd like to share a real-life story with you that illustrates just how beneficial animal communication can be. Marmite was a Jack Russell, and he went missing from his home, which was based over 100 miles away from me. And he'd been missing for 7 nights, and his guardian, Nikki, had done everything possible to find him. She knew he liked to go rabbiting down the holes in the sand quarry next to where she lived, so she'd hired search dogs, a mini digger, a JCB digger, and thermal imaging kit, but there was no sign of him. And then she emailed his photo to me, and I printed it out, and I connected with him. And immediately he started to share images with me. He showed me that he woke Nikki's father up in the night by walking over him, and that he'd then been let out of the back door that was hinged on the right side. And he'd crossed a path, gone through some wooden fencing, across a field, and I got a sense that there were lots of trees on the left-hand side and that he just kept going. Nikki confirmed these details and that that was Marmite's favorite route. So I continued to communicate with him. Using my intention, I moved my consciousness out of my body and into Marmite's. Instantly, I could feel water over my hands, his paws, and when I looked out of his eyes, I could see I was in a small, square-shaped man-made structure that felt hard like concrete. And when I looked up, I could see there was just this glimmer of daylight high above me. Then I realized that Marmite was trapped underground. I tried to see landmarks around his location, but all I could see were brambles. I asked him, "How far are you from home?" And in reply, I heard the words in my mind with my own inner voice, 1 mile. Nikki could not understand why there would be water over Marmite's paws because she lived next to a sand quarry. But then she remembered a place 1 mile from her home and in the direction that Marmite had described, a disused canal. But she said to me, "But he's not there, Pea. I've already gone and there's no sign of him. And anyway, how would I find him? Because if he's trapped underground, Marmite never barks." And I thought, okay, this must be the only Jack Russell in the world that doesn't bark. I reconnected with him and I explained to him, "Nikki is coming out to find you right now, and it might be your last chance to be found. And if you hear her calling for you, you need to start barking. And keep barking, Marmite, until you can look her in the eyes. In the eyes." Within the hour, my phone was ringing, and when I picked it up, I heard Nikki screaming, "We've found him! He's here! Can you hear him?" And she must have held her mobile phone out because all I could hear was a dog barking. Marmite had been trapped down the bottom of a 12-foot deep, disused canal shaft. Nikki was unable to reach him, and eventually she had to call the fire brigade, and they managed to haul him up. He had never stopped barking. Nikki scooped him up into her arms, and she held him face to face. And when he looked her in the eyes for the first time, he stopped barking. This is just one example of how beneficial animal communication could be. I could share so many other stories with you, but I would like to take you back to the start and to when I found myself attending my very first animal communication workshop. In 2004, I adopted this gorgeous rescue dog who I called Morgan. He settled in, but I got this feeling that he was sad and I didn't know what to do about it. You see, I'd been brought up with cats and I understood them, but I just didn't know dogs. And then the rescue center who saved him sent an invitation for an animal communication workshop. I thought, this must be the latest politically correct way of describing how to read your dog's body language. I thought this is going to help me with Morgan, so I went along. But I discovered it was nothing to do with body language. I found myself in a room listening to stories about how it's possible to talk to animals and receive replies from them. There were 20 people sitting in a circle, and there were 19 people listening to these stories and crying. And then there was me. You see, you have to understand that I'd enjoyed a 15-year career in theatre stage management. The work is very practical, and I consider myself a grounded person, so I was feeling skeptical. In the afternoon, we were partnered up, and we were asked to swap photos of our own animals. A complete stranger had a photo of my cat, Texas, and I had a photo of her rabbit, and then we were told to ask them questions. To my surprise, I did receive some answers from the rabbit, but the accuracy was very hit and miss, and I just thought, I'm making this up. But then this complete stranger who was holding a photo of Texas, she was able to describe my hallway, which is very distinctive, the color of my sofa, and his favorite thing to sit on in the back garden at that time, and where it was positioned. Just like Texas had given her a private tour of my home behind my back. Okay, I struggled with the concept of communicating with animals through photos, but this experience got me thinking, there might be something in this. I needed something more tangible, some proof, so I attended further workshops with different teachers, and I also practiced with my friends' animals, both face-to-face with them and through photographs. I asked Morgan, why are you sad? And he was able to tell me, and from that moment, he let go of his sadness. And Texas, who'd been nervous around him, immediately accepted him into the family. I had a gut feeling, I want to be an animal communicator. At the end of a year's training, I left theatre, and in 2006, I turned professional. You might be wondering, can anyone really communicate with animals? And the answer is yes. This is not a gift for the special few. This is a natural ability that we all possess. This is normal practice in the lives of Indigenous people. Children are particularly good at this because they are still in touch with their intuitive nature. I've now been communicating with animals for 10 years, and I also teach workshops all over the world. A couple of weeks ago, I was teaching in Amsterdam, and there were people attending from 9 different countries. Word is spreading about animal communication. This is 150 people, all communicating with each other's animals. This took place in London earlier this year. So what is animal communication? It is the ability to telepathically communicate with animals. It's based on intuition, which is defined as the ability to understand something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning. I believe we are all born with an intuitive nature. We are experiencing intuitive moments all of the time. We might think of a friend and then the phone rings and it's them. Or we might think, I feel like I need to go to my back door to let my cat in. And when you get there they are waiting for you. What I think is happening is that we are picking up on energy. Advances in quantum theory tell us that the universe is filled with energy. Energy is everywhere and takes any shape. We ourselves are beings of energy and vibration, radiating our own unique signature, a bit like our own unique fingerprint. Animals are also radiating their own unique energy signature because they are beings of energy and vibration too. In 2012, a group of neuroscientists addressed the issue of animal consciousness. They signed the Cambridge Declaration of Consciousness, and this stated, "The weight of evidence indicates that humans are not unique in possessing the neurological substrates that generate consciousness." They included all mammals, all birds, and many other creatures, including the octopus. The former executive director of the Mind Science Foundation, Joseph Dial, said, "Animal consciousness and human consciousness are of such similarity that we have to ask ourselves how we treat animals and why we treat them the way that we do." At the moment, one elephant is killed every 15 minutes for its ivory. Experts calculate that 2/3 of the planet's wild animals will be gone by 2020. We urgently need to change our relationship with our fellow species. I believe a powerful way of doing this is by communicating with them. We communicate using a universal language. It's the language of energy. The energy impressions we receive are then translated into the language that we comprehend. They're also interpreted by our body as data using the senses. So we might perceive an image or emotion, a thought form, physical sensation, smell or taste. We might have a gut feeling, a knowing. I tend to receive words or thought forms, and that's probably because I spent 15 years in theatre honing this sense, actively listening to words in the rehearsal room and then from the side of the stage. This goose is called Lucy, and when she went missing, she gave me the words, "Bus stop." And okay, I thought, nah, that can't be right. But we found her next to a broken down old bus, next to a bus that had stopped. We can communicate with animals to find them. And wouldn't we also love to know what they are thinking? Sometimes I'll ask Texas, "Where are you?" And he'll reply, "On important cat business." And then it's like the phone goes down and we're disconnected. Of course, he's reminded me that animals do have free will. When we communicate with them, we come from a place of unconditional love. It is a route to understanding them on a deeper level and for them to understand us. It's not about control or dominance or getting them to do what we want. Animals are not products. They are sentient beings. Communicating with them and giving them a chance to express their feelings can really help with changes and loss and relationships and rehabilitation. A client needed me to help her with her stallion, Musgo, who'd been labeled dangerous. He'd been bolting for no apparent reason, and his guardian, Maddie, had done everything. For 4 years, he'd been shut down. He wasn't interacting with the horses at the yard or taking an interest in anything, and Maddie had seen various equine experts. Musco told me that he missed a horse friend, and I got the sense that he really lacked self-confidence. Giving him the chance to express his feelings and to be really heard helped him, much like a human being receiving a counseling session. Within months, he'd regained his self-confidence and was winning dressage competitions. And more than that, he was showing empathy to others. If there was a person at the yard who was feeling sad or upset, he would wrap his neck around them until they felt better. Or if a horse had just arrived and was feeling all unsettled by the change, he would put his nose on them until they became calm. We can communicate with domestic animals, but we are not limited to them. We can also communicate with wild animals, those living freely and also those kept in captivity. We can communicate with all creatures. We can communicate with lions and dolphins and whales and flies and mice and beetles and guinea pigs like Trevor and chickens like Sophie and cows like Esty. The only limit is the one that we put there. Neuroscientist Dr. John Lilly said, "What I found after 12 years of working with dolphins was that the limits weren't in them, the limits were in us. And I had to go away and ask myself, who am I?" People come on my workshops because they really want to help animals, and what they realize very quickly is that the animals are helping them get back in touch with who they really are, reminding us all that we are a part of nature. I discovered my life's purpose when I adopted Morgan and he introduced me to animal communication. And I am truly honored to be able to do this work. I am also very grateful I was able to help my own dog, Bodhi. A few weeks ago, as I started to write this talk, he was approaching the end of his life. Because I knew I could communicate with him, I was able to ask him what he wanted, what he needed from me. And in those final weeks, and then days, and then hours, I was able to honor his wishes. The truth is, animals have things to say, and they are just waiting for us to listen. I would like to invite you to start the conversation. Thank you.